The following is an episode of the Father More podcast with my friend Travis Mayer. He is a professional athlete, a gym owner, and a father of four kids under the age of 6. And this conversation is fantastic. We get into the weeds on how he's able to not just survive being outnumbered by his kids 2-1, he and his wife, but also thrive under that type of a pressure and that type of a situation that he and his wife have actively chosen to put themselves into. And it was a really beautiful look into his idea of almost like training himself up into being better with his prioritization of his time, with his scheduling, with being present with his children, with his work, with his business, with his wife when he does get the opportunity and the time in his day to spend that time with them. So he's really built a really fascinating set of practices and habits that allow him to be effective and improving at all of these things. And as he says in the episode, his big goal is to get 1% better at everything every day, and just focusing on how those little things can be changed and adjusted so that he is the father he wants to be, the husband he wants to be, the athlete he wants to be, and the business owner he wants to be. Man, it was really, really cool conversation. And I know for a fact that you are going to enjoy it. So take a listen. And if you haven't already, you can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the various podcast platforms that you listen to, as well as a video version on YouTube. And you can follow us on Instagram at FatherMorePod. Thanks so much, folks. Enjoy. I'll see you soon. Take care. Travis Mayer, my man, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me here.
Of course, man. I'm excited to.
Okay, so
all things dad, so let's make it happen.
Yeah, this is so, this whole idea here is that I'm a new father. Like, I have a 6-week-old. Thank you very much. I'm very excited. He's awesome. I love him very much. And yeah. Can you imagine if I was like, yeah, I'm a new dad. It sucks. He's the worst. I can't believe this happened to me.
I mean, there's definitely people out there for sure like that, but
yeah, so like my idea here is I want to talk to dads who are like high performing, able to like do a lot of different things and try and learn from them. You know, I am big on like learning through conversation and practice and doing and stuff. And I think, people would be probably interested in learning along with like a new first-time dad. And like, I think there's a lot of people who are in the same shoes as I am, who don't necessarily have the same access to people as I do. So, I think that's the goal. That's the idea. So this is the Father More podcast is what it's called.
And no, I'm excited. I think I get that question a lot, how I definitely balance 4 children and being a full-time athlete and running a gym and still feeling like a somewhat normal person kind of day in and day out. But yeah, it's one is just definitely have a good wife that supports a lot of that journey. So for me, she's probably like the biggest supporter that allows me to do what I do. But yeah, just finding a good structure and balance across the board with everything is what I kind of strive to do.
So let's start from like the basics. Like you have 4 kids. What are their ages?
Yeah, so I have a 6-year-old. Well, he'll be 6 this September. Oh, I guess we're in September. Wow. 6, 4, 2, and a 6-month-old.
So, okay, I was looking through your Instagram and I saw a picture of you and your entire crew, and I was like, that kid doesn't look like the eldest doesn't look any more than 7. I was like, does he has like 4 kids under the age of 7.
So he's technically still 5. He's not even 6 yet.
So you guys are just putting together a starting 5 for like a basketball team.
Nope, no, we're not. It's done. We are done. 4 is great. 4 is a great number. I mean, I originally started when we originally talked about it. I was like, yeah, 2. Like, I'd be happy with 2. And then we had 2. And then she's like, well, what do you think about 3? I was like, yeah, sure, let's do 3. And then I think after the 3rd one, she's like, I think we need 1 more. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And then now after the 4th one, I think we're both like, all right, we're good here. 4 is a great number.
So my brother, I have 2 older brothers. One of my brothers has 3 kids, and they are aged like 7, 5, and 4. So for a little while, it was kind of on the same trajectory as you were. but they put the kibosh on it like immediately, because 5 and 4, it was a 51-week difference. Like they knocked them out back to back. I believe those are called Irish twins. And
Yep, that is
so they
correct.
they knocked them out back to back. And I think they put the kibosh on it pretty quick. I don't know if number 4 is in the cards, but you guys have put, you guys have brought 4 beautiful babies out into the world in the
Thank you.
past, 5 years. Like, at what point did you know that not only did you want kids, but you wanted like a slew of them?
Mm. I mean, I knew we wanted kids kind of like as soon as we got married. Like it was pretty. I mean, after we got married, it was fairly short after she got pregnant. Like that was just kind of like what we wanted to do. So my wife's 5 years older than I am. So it was like, I guess I was married at 24 and then my first kid at 25.
Yeah.
And so from that point, now I'm 30 and I got 4 of them. But so it's kind of been like every year since we've been married, we've been pregnant or had a baby at some point in time. Um, but yeah, I feel like ever since the beginning of like our relationship, family was something we always wanted and to grow. Did I think I would ever have 4? Honestly, no, I didn't. But once you experience a child and the birth and like as they get older and the experiences they have and when they start communicating with you and like you run through the door and it's like dad dad dad, like those moments, unless you have a kid you can't describe it. Like it's awesome. um and that's probably maybe because I have such great kids, it made me want to keep having more. um and so yeah, we got to 3 and then decided, hey, let's go for one more, and now we got 4 and ended with a girl. So we're excited. 3 boys and 1 girl. It's definitely an entertaining household to say the least.
I can imagine when she gets to dating age, she's gonna have 3 older brother protectors.
Yep.
No.
Yep. We'll have 3 older brothers. It's even, man, I remember what I did when I was that age. And then, God, nowadays it's even worse looking at these kids.
Yeah.
So my wife's sister, sent a picture of their neighbor's daughter. It was like, do you think this outfit is appropriate? And then Lauren showed it to me and she was like, how old do you think this girl was? And I was like, 18, 19. She was like, 13. I was like, oh my God. I was like, no way. I was like, we're just going to lock her in a cage and just leave her. Yeah, we can't let her out of the house.
Yeah. The tough part is
she's going to date one of the boys' friends or something. She's like,
oh yeah.
she's like, you're not going to let him date outside of this, but it's going to be one of the friends that's going to come over, hang out with one of the boys. And then I was like, well, then that friend ain't going to be a friend no more.
What's the line from
over?
What's the line from Bad Boys? I'm not afraid to go back to prison. Like,
yeah. I definitely would not be.
Yeah, so you've got a whole, like, you've got an entire crew. You guys
Yep.
have a lot going on. You mentioned yourself, it's like, you're a father, you're a professional athlete, you run a business, you obviously you exist as an individual and you have a relationship with your wife. How are you, like, how are you at balancing all those things now compared to when you had one kid and then the second showed up? And have you improved that skill set over time, or is it just
Oh
something that
yeah,
you just figured
I
out?
think definitely. I think how I balance that, and then also how I respond to it mentally and emotionally and physically, like that stuff all still plays a role in it as well. So if like me and my wife are very kind of laid back, like with our kids and like what they do and not getting too worked up. And if they're sick, like, okay, I'm going to leave the gym and I'm not going to train. Like my time is to then go help them. That's just part of being a father and, excuse me, a parent. Is those are your responsibilities, is to take care of your little one, and you can't get worked up if you like miss a training session. Like early on, I used to be like, oh, I need to train, but then it's like, okay, my kid is more important. Put that to the side. I'll train later, or I'll train tomorrow, or I'll make it up, whatever, or I'll just move on. But being stressed about it and worried and taking away from like your kids at home because I'm too concerned about hitting that training session, it's just not as important. And I think that's partially due to having kids, right? So it gives you a different perspective and a different kind of motivation and a why on like why you do things relative to if you just all you do is train and that's it. Like that's all you have, right? Like there's more things than fitness. There's a lot of
It's
other
hard.
things
It's
in
hard to
fitness.
believe, but that's
Yeah.
true.
So I think outside of that, it's almost been like a good thing for me is like I go home and like my time at home is focused on them. Like the only time I'm like having to train is if something with our schedules didn't line up and I needed to pick the kids up early, and then I'll just go home and I still have everything at home. And then when I get a break, I'll go train. So I think that's one thing for people to kind of work on is just not getting overwhelmed if you're like missing training sessions, or if you missed a workout, it's okay. Like just pick back up the next day and kind of get back into a routine. Um, don't blame your kids for it. Like
Oh man.
it's not their fault, you know? Like I've had for the last 2 weeks, we've had 3 kids sick, right? So I had like our daughter was sick, and then my second child was sick and he was throwing up and then different stuff. So then he couldn't go to school. Then I had to keep him home. And then my other one has been sick 3 days in a row. So then it's just, that's just what it is sometimes. Right. And I'm not going to sit here and complain and make excuses because I mean, we chose to have children and that was our choice. And now I need to help and provide and do the things I can to help out. And my job is definitely more flexible than my wife's. Um, and so she's a teacher. So then like her schedule's kind of set where mine's a little more free. So I will the last couple days I've kept him home, and then as soon as she gets home, I come into the gym and then I'll train, take a quick break, train again, and then do another session at home or just rest. And it's I'm still getting those sessions in. It's just learning how to condense everything and not get worked up about it. And yeah, just it's hard to find that balance, but I think also having kids provided that balance,
Yeah.
right?
So
You have to do those things. Like you have to pick them up from school. You have to be there at the school bus stop. Like, so then it helps structure my entire training, right? So that it's like, I know I have this block, then this is open, then I have this block, this is open, then I have this block. And so then you just start piecing everything together and figure out the schedule that works best for you. And I feel like we've done a good job kind of since day one of how to structure all of that. Like one kid is, I'm not going to say easy, but it's a lot easier to
it's a
juggle than
lot
four,
easier than four.
right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, I can't get there. You can go pick them up. Where then when you have two, it's like, all right, now we're on man to man. Three, it's like, okay, now we're going to zone. And then four, it's like, whatever. We'll just see what happens with the fourth one. Let's just hope we can pick them up and do everything that we can. Um, but yeah, it gets easier as it goes along, I think, because you probably get more laid back and are okay with everything. And then the amount of time probably with the first one on how like one-on-one it is, like then that time's becoming with like the siblings, like our oldest is helping out with the other ones, and then they kind of do their own thing, where our third one, he's just wild. I mean, he's the kid that grabs the marker and colors on the wall. Like none of my other kids did that, but this dude just decides, hey, I got a whole box of crowns, I'm gonna draw all over the place. Eats everything, but oh man, I love him. He's wild. He's something else.
It sounds like there's a lot of really good stuff that you said there, and I want to parse some of it out because it
Yeah.
sounds like one of the things that you mentioned was that your it's like your life was almost forced to be much more compartmentalized and prioritized once you started having multiple kids. Like even having one kid, it's important, but once you have like two, three, four kids, the time that you have for certain activities, whether it's with one of your kids or with your yeah, everything kind of like shrinks, and so you
Yeah.
have to be super efficient. And if you miss that block, you also have to be really flexible about dealing with just being like, okay, that wasn't going to happen today. Not a
Yep.
big deal. We'll pick it back up tomorrow. And have you found that has like, have you always been the chill guy who's like laid back and easy going with it, or did you have to develop that along with this prioritization and scheduling?
I would say a little bit of both. I mean, I'm very structured with how I'd like to do things, like just kind of like with my training and how everything has kind of evolved over the years. Like I like when I hit my training sessions, I have certain training blocks on when I do them. And so at first I would say it definitely was a little kind of like chaotic of like, it was more like stress I would put on myself when I couldn't finish the session, or if like I needed to go pick them up from school or something happened. Um, So I had to learn to just kind of like let that be what it is, and just like accept it. And the amount of time I can then go back into the gym or make another trip up here, whatever it is, or just I need to do the workout at home, just do that. Or I just am okay with missing it. I'm like, you got to look at like big picture. It's like, okay, so I did 3 sessions today versus 5. All right. Like it's all relative to a degree of just not getting too worked up about it for me. I think it's just go with the flow. Like we never did schedules with our kids. It was like when they want to nap, they want to nap. When they're going to eat, they're going to eat. Like that's just how we kind of are. Where I know like my sister's very, whoa, almost over, but she's like super structured with how like my kid needs to eat now, then they need to go take a nap, and like that's how they work. But my wife and I are just a little more like, well, they're going to sleep in the car and well, hopefully they'll get a good enough nap. And that's probably why they don't sleep very well and they're up all the time. But it definitely, hopefully will work at some point in time that they'll become better sleepers. But
I've heard I've done one other episode of this, by the way. I did it with I spoke with Vellner yesterday, Pat Vellner. Love that guy. He also has a newborn, so we were kind of comparing notes, and he was talking about how he sort of witnessed the idea of having a super regimented like first child and then having a second child, and all of that schedule gets thrown out the window
yep.
because there's no way you can coordinate like a toddler to deal with like a newborn schedule of like, okay, we're going to be quiet for the next few hours, like, so I think there's like a resiliency that gets built around just being able to deal with some sort of chaos, like wrangling chaos with a bunch of children.
Just imagine the chaos. You just like, whatever. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, and then, it's funny, like, there's always yelling, screaming, something always happening. So then your kid becomes a good sleeper because they're tired. But I remember our first one, like, we would tiptoe down the hall. He doesn't wake up. And then now it's like pots and pans are dropping. They're hitting, screaming, hitting each other. And she's like, just passed out. But it is funny how those commercials, I mean, I don't know what commercials it was, or insurance or something, but it'd be like first kid, and then like second kid, she would just hand him to like the mechanic whose hands are all greasy and like.
Yeah. I have a friend who we last saw them right before we gave birth, so it was maybe like 6 7 weeks ago. And she's been an old friend of ours. She and her husband just joined our CrossFit gym back like 12 years ago, 10 years ago. My brother and I opened it. They were one of our first members, and they were just about to have their first child, their only child right now. And so she told me the story about how when he was like 6 or 7 months old, they went to Hawaii for Christmas, and she put him in a carrier facing out, walking down the aisle, and whoever was like, "Oh my God, you have such a cute baby," she just handed them the baby. She just handed them her son and was like, "I'll see you at the end of the flight. Like, if you need diapers, I've got them. If you need food, he's got them." And they're like, "Oh, we've got it." And she was just like, "Yeah, you just point out like teenage girls and grandmas, and you just hand them the baby, and they'll take care of the baby." And I was like, "Are you crazy?" She's like, "Yeah,
But this is legit. Like,
legit.
she actually did this.
She actually did this." She's like, "What's gonna happen? We're on an airplane. If they need me, I'm like 2 rows behind them, and if and it gives me the opportunity to sit." And I was like, "Wow, this is a new level of
Whoever
chill."
took that child is like a saint.
It's an
Like whoever
absolute
was
saint.
like, I'm gonna take this baby that you just handed me, that I have no clue who you are, and I'm just gonna hold this baby for this entire flight.
It's like
No way.
maximum relaxation, chill vibes. Like I don't understand how. Like I don't.
mean, that's like a whole nother level.
That's a
Like
whole nother
you're
level.
probably you took some stuff before you came on the flight to help out, and you just forgot that you had a child.
She was like, I don't know.
Like,
Yeah,
I can't keep this baby anymore.
I don't honestly, it was like she made it sound like it was a pre-planned. She's like, "You know what? I need a strategy to like, enroll all of my neighbors on this plane, on this flight into helping me with this baby. And what better way than to hand him off to like, a grandma that's sitting in the aisle here."
Yeah, that's strange.
So I think that's a really extreme example of like being relaxed and able to sort of like go with the flow.
Yeah, I would say I'm not that relaxed,
Okay.
but
Maybe not quite that laid back. Sure, sure.
yeah,
That
that's
makes sense.
yeah. I'll just leave it at that. I won't say anything else about
Uh
that.
so then your eldest are your oldest like two kids at this point are starting to get old enough to like be interested in what you do, right?
Yeah, definitely the oldest two like kind of have more of a concept and an idea of like dad goes and competes, he works out, and then when I come back, did you win? And it's like, no, I didn't win that. But like the the oldest one for sure has an idea and a grasp of kind of like what I'm doing. Um,
So like the reason why I asked that is because I have a son, and I want to obviously include him in my activities. It's like future training partner.
yeah,
I don't want to force it on him, but I feel like if I work out enough near him, he's just gonna be like, this is what we do, and he's gonna be like,
oh
let's
yeah,
go work out, dad. So I'm curious like how that interaction works. Like, do you actually get a chance to do that, or is everything just a little bit too chaotic and too sort of like all over the place to be able to pull that off, to be able to work
yeah.
out?
No, I mean, so we have everything at our house. So I mean, like ski ergs, rowers, boxes, slam ball, like literally everything. So they like when I am working out at home, they want to work out, but it's also to a degree of like dad still has to do his job. So then my wife will like take them out and like let them play while I'll work out. But then when I'm done, they come in and will like want to do a workout.
Mm.
So they'll be like, write me a workout, write me a workout. So then it's usually like ball slams or kind of like slam balls over the shoulder, squats, pull ups, like that kind of stuff. And it's cool to see that's like the normal, right? Like they kind of have an idea of like, oh, well, we got to go to a gym and work out and run around and do whatever. Like to understand that dad owns a gym, and for them, it's just like when they come in here, it's like freedom. But then it's like, okay, well, this is still business, guys. You gotta still contain yourselves. But yeah, it's cool to kind of let them see that like health and wellness is an important part of how you live every day, and then to like hopefully teach them healthy habits as like they grow up of like, okay, when you're getting it, since my wife teaches in school, she created like a health and fitness class and like does that. But the amount of kids that like can't touch their toes or can't do a squat or can't do these things, you're like, it's so basic and like how you develop, but it's like what you're around all the time, like what you're actually doing. So just letting them do squats, do the workouts with me, have a PVC and kind of do clean and jerks and snatches. Like they don't really know what they're doing, but they're having fun doing it. So then it's creating the fun aspect around it and making fitness fun
Yeah.
without like really doing it.
So is there is there like a version of like your mindset that comes into play when you're around your kids of like this is the image or the idea of how I want them to view me, or is it much more natural? Do you just kind of have this idea of like this is who I am, and I don't need to necessarily put something on for them to like see a certain example? It just is
Oh,
what it is.
yeah, no. I mean, I think when it when I'm at home, I try to be fully with them and like try to stay off the phone, try to like make sure I'm spending time with them, like they're not just sitting around watching TV all the time or doing something like that where it's like, all right, let's get outside. Dad's out here cutting the grass, doing landscaping. They want to dig and help, and like I think just spending quality time with them is more important than me trying to like show them like things have to be a certain way or done a certain way. Like that was one thing my parents always, I feel like, did a good job at, was letting us just kind of not do whatever we wanted, but from like a sports side of things, like we tried every sport and whatever we liked, we kind of like stuck with and just see everything that you possibly can and experience it, and then decide what you like to do, what you want to chase after, what your dreams are going to be. Like that stuff will, I feel like, just kind of come naturally. Like I'm not putting them in CrossFit, I'm not making them do all these things. Like if they want to try it, then we're trying it. So like we my oldest goes to jujitsu twice a week because I think that's like a good skill to learn, how to grapple, how to fall, how to roll. And then of course, if you ever get in a situation, you can defend yourself to a degree. And then also if someone tries to date your sister, like you have a background to like help them out. But then we've done baseball. We're gonna probably do lacrosse here soon. Um, I have dirt bikes for them to ride. Like, so I think it's just a wide variety of letting them be kids and have fun kind of doing whatever they want. Um, and then kind of go from there. And then as they pick things up, then pursue it a little bit more and see. I mean, they're 6 and 4. Like the people I think get way too intense. And I saw this with motocross when I was growing up is like a kid would fall, the dad would just grab him and he's screaming bloody murder and he'd just throw him back on the bike and the kid would go. Like there's definitely, I feel like right times and bad times to do that. And I think that just probably wasn't like, you're just going to traumatize the kid that's not going to enjoy riding anymore, where it's like, this is a fun sport. And it's, yeah, you could become professional and do these things, but I think there's different avenues that you can go down. Like, I think it's great that I didn't go to college. I was more of the kind of outsider of the school world, but my wife loves school, actually just finished her doctorate.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I don't know how she did that with, she was being pregnant and then had the baby and then was still doing it. So I don't know how she does that, but loves school. So you get kind of like these two different sides. Like I'm covered in tattoos, my wife isn't. Like you literally have two different ends of the spectrum with our kids and how we kind of interact and do different things, but you also can still see that you don't have to be one way or another to be successful or go do this. Like, all right, look, I didn't have a college degree or anything, but I run my own business. I'm a professional athlete. Like there's other avenues than just like, it has to be by the book. I go to school, I do this, I go to this job. Like, and I think that between both of us is pretty good to share with them and have those kind of experiences left or right. So I guess back to your question is not really do we push anything upon them. It's just kind of let them do it and experience it and put them in different situations that would allow them to try different skills and new things. And then how they grow from that is what you'll kind of develop and see.
So it sounds like, one of your like part of your sort of philosophy around how you want your kids to be able to grow up is to have like a sense of agency and autonomy to be able to like experience things, reflect on whether they enjoyed it or not, make an active participant decision of whether they want to
Yeah.
continue on or change things. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I think the idea of agency is really important for adults and it's extremely important for children, because the last thing you want is to, like, as a parent, one, it's impossible practically, but you also kind of like are running a risk of in the long term not being really that good for your kid if you micromanage every decision they make, everything they participate in, and don't give them that sense of agency and control over their life. So that's something that for me philosophically makes a lot of sense of like how I would like my son to grow up and the types of things that he wants to participate in, and sort of like build it from the ground up of like, hey, you know what, you can do any of these things you want. The only thing that I want you to understand is like, if you're going to do it, I want you to do it to like the most of your ability, like have a great time with it, do it the best you can, really get as much out of it as you can, and if you don't want to do it anymore, we'll find something else for you to do, no problem.
Yeah. No,
um
for sure. I mean, I
was
think
that Go
that's
ahead.
definitely kind of like a degree of what it is. And I mean, so my oldest is very outgoing and like wants to try new things and gets excited about the outfits and the new soccer gear and the new baseball gear, like gets excited about that. And my youngest, or my second one, I always say youngest, but second one is he's a little more reserved, sits back, takes things in, but is extremely gifted athletically. Like the way he, I mean, so he's 3 currently, but the way like he knows how to ride dirt bikes, he knows how to play baseball very well. Like he knows how to make switch, trap the ball in soccer, switch legs, kick both. Like, so he's very naturally gifted in that side.
He's
But
more
when it gets,
athletic than I am. Got it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Even me probably. Um, but when he gets in those environments, shuts down. So it's, as a parent, it's hard because like he's crying and doesn't want to do it. So you're having to learn how to understand like what he's emotionally going through and be able to be like, calm down, it's okay, just sit here, let's hang back, you can just watch and see. But it's definitely a challenge. And so I think you have one kid that's like, oh, I'm all about it, I want to go, I want to try. And then you have the next one, you're like, you're so talented but you're like terrified. Like I remember we went to the pool to go swim, and there was a lot of people at the neighborhood pool, and he literally just sat there for like 10 minutes and observed everybody before he even got in, just to like, he said there's too many people, but just
Yeah.
then he like slowly starts warming up, and I believe it's going to go away and he'll get out of that phase eventually, and then he'll realize that he is very talented at sports and then probably start to pick it up. But it's like, hey, do you want to go do this? And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then when you get there, full shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
Like shutdown, will not do it. Like we've done it at jiu-jitsu, we've done it at baseball, and just does not want to go on the field, does not want any part of it. And it's funny because of how excited he gets, but it's also, as a parent, you have to learn how to interact with that child and teach him a different way to understand his emotions and be able to go out there and at least try. Where like your other kid might not be like that, and so they just kind of will run off and go play and be excited about it. So yeah, as parents, you're kind of like always learning and trying to do what's best for them. But he's definitely more like me. He's more emotional. He's more um, gets excited or overwhelmed very quickly. But then my wife's very just like all the time, which is kind of like the oldest one. So it's kind of funny to just see how the interactions and the feelings and emotions on how they'll kind of go with like one parent or the other.
Yeah. I have a theory that kids train you as much as you train isn't the right word, but like
Yeah.
you basically, kids develop you as a parent as much as you develop them as kids, because
Oh, I would agree with that.
my experience, the reason why I came up with this is that like I have I have nieces and nephews both on my side of the family as well as my wife's side of the family, and interacting with toddlers, like 2 or 3 year olds, is like overwhelming to the point where I am just I'm shut off. I cannot interact with toddlers. I don't know how to talk to them. I don't know how to deal with them. I don't know what ways to like
What I
exactly. And I don't know what, like, how to like stop them from doing the things I don't want them to do, and to encourage them to do the things that are like really cool for them to do. And
yeah.
like there is no language, like there's no language or any sort of base layer of understanding that I have with a toddler, because I haven't had that 2 to 3 years of interacting with them. And I feel like my son is going to end up training me to be much more patient and able to deal with a toddler, but it's going to take 2 years. Like it's going to take him two
Yeah.
years to get me there. And so this idea of like, you and your kids, it's like a two-way street of like what you essentially teach each other, is like something I'm trying to hold on to, because I think there's a lot of little things of like my own little patience that I need to develop around, being okay with, because like, we have 3 dogs as well, and like the dogs are fantastic, they're very well behaved, but they do get on my nerves a little bit, and I'm like, I need to be able to like tone this down for when my son's getting ready to like understand how to interact with pets, that he doesn't do it the way that I do it. Like I need to train myself up
Yeah.
and like level up my game so that I'm also a good example for what he's
Oh,
got
for
going on.
sure. Yeah, things that are going to bother you, they're going to do, and you're going to have to learn to cope with it and deal with it. But yeah, I mean, it's yeah, it's definitely cool though, because it teaches you a different perspective of how you react to certain things, and like you have to respond calmer and not get as fired up, like where like emotionally, like you just want to yell and sometimes be like, no, that's not right. But then
Yeah.
you'll understand some of them don't respond to that, right? Then it's like a full shutdown, and it's like, oh, that just backfired. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. It just, you weren't supposed to do that. um, where then your other one, then it's just like, then they think that's normal, then they yell, right? Or if it's like, oh, you pinch him on his butt or something, then he thinks it's okay. Then he goes and starts pinching everybody else, and you're like, no, that backfired as well. Okay, can't do that too. But it's definitely, yeah, learning from each of them on how what they respond well to, what they don't respond well to. Okay, you have to like take them into another room and like have a discussion, and like my oldest can just process things quicker than my other two, and so then when you're talking with him, like he understands it immediately, and then so then you're almost used to that. But then when you have a talk with the other one, like he doesn't process it like that, so then it's like learning how to or not cooperate, but interpret a better way that he understands it, that's not as aggressive. Or it's just funny, like you'll say, oh well, we're not going to do this, and the second one's like, I don't care. But then if you said my oldest one is like, no, how dare you, no, like full meltdown of like, don't you take this away. But my other one's like, I don't care, do it.
So how I'm still now even more blown away. How did you like essentially learn to speak three different languages? I won't say four different languages because like a 6 month old doesn't really require that
Yeah,
much, like in
you
terms
just
of
make facial expressions at her and she's all excited.
they love, yeah, that's like my son's 6 weeks, so he's just now starting to smile for things other than farts. Like
Yeah.
he smiles when he sees us, which is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, just
But
wait till they start like interacting and saying things. That's when it's
that's
real.
when it starts going crazy. Yeah, I can imagine. And so now it's just it's blowing my mind that you're over the past like 5 years, 6 years, you've basically learned how to speak like four different emotional languages,
Yeah,
raised a few humans, and also been able to like stay at the top of your game. And by the way, keep your relationship positive enough to continue having kids. Like
yeah.
at some point that also has to be addressed. So like,
Yeah,
I now that we've talked a lot about the kids, like obviously we have to talk about your wife, the mother of your children.
yeah,
Your relationship with her is clearly going okay enough for you to have
yeah,
had a bunch of kids.
yeah.
How did you manage that aspect of it? It must have been incredibly difficult to like carve out space for you and your relationship with your wife when you have, four kids under five.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we definitely put them first, for the most part, because they're our kids, and we definitely sometimes are like, oh yeah, it's time for us to like have a date or something. Where we went out kayaking the other day, and that was probably the first time we've been out together, just us, in probably a year.
Wow.
um, and then before that, like it was 2 or 3, like, and that's just something we're kind of like, not saying we're okay with it and we need to make sure we do that, but we also are like, we are parents, we don't like to pawn them off on our parents, even though like my parents are local, her parents are local, but it's not something we like to do. And it's not like a thing of like, oh, we're trying to just control everything and manage it all ourselves. It's just, I actually enjoy spending time with my kids. um so like when I get off of work, I go pick them up. Like I don't leave them at daycare all day, and like I like to spend time with them. And so I think for us, there are times where we realize we need to like go out to eat, or just like have a few hours to ourselves, and that's like peace and quiet. Like it is, but it's being able to communicate that and have that understanding. And it definitely is harder as the more kids you bring into it, because then saying, hey, grandma and grandpa, you want to watch 4 kids, is harder than like, hey, you want to watch 1 kid. um, but it's just being able to have that understanding and communication between each other, that no matter kind of like how crazy things are and wild it is with like kids, like at night usually is like our kind of like, we usually have like 2 or 3 hours before like we go to bed, that they're kind of asleep, that we'll just watch a show, talk, whatever it is, usually clean up the mess that they made. But other than that, it's just kind of like having that understanding of it's okay, and we'll have the time here later, but we want to spend that time with them. And so taking them to go do things or going out, spending quality time kind of as a family, I still count as like us doing things together. Like if we go to the zoo, if we go to the aquarium, if we go somewhere, like it's still taking them with us, but that's what we asked for. Like,
Yeah.
we asked to have this, like, we are glad we have these kids. We're glad we get to do these things. And there's definitely moments it's stressful and crazy, but at the end of the day, like, I still love her for everything that she does and being my partner in crime. And she'd probably say the same. So it's just kind of a definitely a wild ride, but it's fun.
Is there is there a fear, I want to talk about big trips, like trips to the zoo, trips to the aquarium, because to me that sounds like a huge trip, but I'm sure to you that's like a Thursday. But
Yeah.
is there
Usually, actually, that's my rest day. So yeah, usually.
is there before we get there, is there a fear and a strategy, or a strategy around losing yourself, like your autonomy, your wife's autonomy, your relationships, like core, to the fact that you guys are by choice actively being, the parents to four kids? Like, is there a fear that that could just completely like wear away the edges? And then if there is there like a strategy to help deal with that?
Um, I wouldn't say there's a fear. I mean, I think you kind of, if you know yourself enough, you're going to know when you're kind of becoming distant and not as present kind of in the moments. And I think when you have four kids, you just have to balance that way more, right? Like, you have to make sure you spend time sitting down, talking, having discussions, figuring out whatever it is that you're wanting to figure out or talk about, that you have to force those times to happen. And I think over time, like, you just kind of understand that there's going to be times that it's challenging and hard, and be okay with that. But at the end, know that no matter what kind of happens, we're both going to stick by each other's side and help each other out and always be there for each other. So, I mean, I asked her to marry me. I'm going to be there for her thick and thin, like, regardless of what kind of is thrown at us. And then we had four children, and that is our decision. So we will do everything we can to provide like the best life for our kids. And then on top of that, like, I'm still trying to be a professional athlete, and it's definitely a lot to juggle at times. But being here at the gym, it's like, okay, that's my time to be an athlete. Then when I'm at home, it's my time to be at home and present at home. One thing I work with like my mental coach on is like almost like taking the hats on and off. Like, all right, when it's time to train, you put your training shoes on and it's go time. All right, then when you're done, take those shoes off. Now it's the business owner time. And then it's like, now my time is solely focused on that. Then when it's my time to be at home, all right, now I'm just being fully present at home. Let's go outside, let's go play. Okay, when it's kids are off to bed, all right, now it's my time to be like the husband. Okay, how was your day? What can we do? Like, what do you want to do coming up? Like, and I think just for me, that was an easy way to understand and grasp how to kind of balance a lot of the things that go on. It's just like, when my time is in here, that's what it's for. When my time is at home, it's focused on my family. When we're out traveling, it's like, all right, let's put the phone down and try to be more present in these experiences and do it together as a family. So yeah, I guess that kind of
That makes
is the
sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that
balance of it.
the balancing act of being super present when it is time to do the thing that you're doing at that moment, um and being able to switch that on and off for the various like contexts that it's important to do that for, sounds like a superhero skill. Like, it sounds like a superpower, being able to be like, all right, I'm 100% focused on training. I've got 90 minutes, I've got X, Y, and Z to get done. And then once that's done, I've got, like, I have to take care of my books and my payroll. And then once that's done, I have to go pick up my kids and like be a dad. And, a bad training session and, a rough, like, rough financials can't affect my ability to like be a dad or whatever. Right. Or it's like the other side of it, where having a great training session and everything's going great, and like that's the only time I'm a good dad or a good husband or a good father.
Yeah.
It must be it. That's one of those things that I imagine gets like easier with practice, but also requires you to be aware of it and practicing it all the time, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think part of that too is like, I have someone I talk to about it, right? Like, so I have like a mental performance coach, and a lot of the things aren't always necessarily talking about like fitness related or training. It's like, okay, like, what are the things outside of the gym that are like making me feel a certain way, or how like focused I am on different things? And it's like, okay, was that actually optimal to get you to where you want to be? And it's like, yes or no. And it's like, no. Okay, so then like, how can you look at that a different way to put you in a better place, whether it's financially, whether it's spending time at home. Is it like, okay, when I'm at home, I'm on social media. Okay, well then like you need to put your phone down and go turn it off and then make sure. And then it's like those little things that you, when you start to become aware of it and how people interact or say different things, even in the gym, right? So if someone's negative about the workout or how hard it's going to be, I mean, that's just a mental thing that they're just kind of portraying out there that then wears off on everybody else. Where if the environment is like lighthearted and fun, the energy's good, then people probably have a better workout. And it's just being able to translate that into literally every area. And it's definitely, it takes practice. And there's still days I mess it up and have to work on things and balance. And I'm not saying I don't ever get angry and not that I don't ever have bad training days, because it happens quite frequently. But it's how you actually handle those and develop as a human being and personally as myself, that it allows me to grow more as an athlete, more as a father, more as a husband, more as a business owner. And then understanding, like, even as the gym, it's like, okay, I need to outsource more things. Like, I'm spreading myself too thin. Okay, well, here, can you guys take this? And then they're like, yes. And so then it's just being able to be aware of all those areas. But if you don't talk about it or express it and you just keep everything in, then that's a hard thing to start to understand. Because I mean, I keep everything usually in. And so then when I started expressing things and talking about it, I was like, oh, well, this is easier if you just ask someone else for help, or you do this, or you can focus more on here. Because then the time of that you're doing it, you're getting more out of it. And then you're giving yourself 110% on it. And then at the end of the day, then you're like, oh, well, that was way better. And then you just start finding different ways to level up from that in literally every area. And that's kind of what I try to do in each area.
Yeah.
Um,
It
but it,
sounds like, what's that? What was that?
I said, it just means like you got to be able to balance that and try
Yeah.
that and be okay that it's not always going to work right. And it's not always going to go according to plan. But then you realize and mark that down of like, that didn't work. Okay, now let's try something else and see how that goes.
It sounds like there's like this active strategy of making everything able to improve everything else, like your approach in how you are a husband, how you are a father, how you're a business owner, how your training goes, how you're, coaching, etc. All these different things, like you're almost using, because of how tight your, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm just trying to like read between the lines here,
Yeah.
because of how tight your time is and how tight your schedule has to be and how your priorities have to be adjusted around your kids and around all these different things that you're juggling. It seems as if, the idea of like self-help hobbies, or like those go out the window. Like you're not going to be able to spend, 20 hours a week reading a book or listening to an audiobook that like, gives you these strategies. You almost have to like find ways of using the like interactions that you have in all the other areas in your life to improve all the other areas in your life. So like the
Yeah.
lessons you learn as like a father, it comes into like how you deal with, your business, and the lessons you learn in your business comes into like how you deal with like your workouts, and your workouts, how you deal with your wife, and how you interact with your
Yeah.
parents. And so like there's almost like this layering, like this interconnected layering of like everything becomes like a focusing lens around everything else.
Yeah. Like I have like a goals board, and one of the things is like find a way to be 1% better at everything you do. So like in each and every area that I do. And so that I look at like the caps I put on is more like how I interact with like my mental coach is like, all right, as a dad, how can I be 1% better today? Like, what can I do at home to be more present, to be more in tune with my kids and like teach them something different? And then it's like, okay, as an athlete, what can I do today that's going to be slightly better? And just, it doesn't have to be these drastic changes that like are huge. Like it can just be something very small, like, oh, okay, I made sure I logged my results today. I wrote down everything that I ate. Here was the food I had. And then like those little things start to add up over time. And then you do that over a month. And then it's like, oh, wow, I've gotten so much better with like time management, how much fueling I need. And then all those things that you thought were hard and difficult are now like easy and just kind of like routine. Like taking cold showers in the morning, or then journaling at night, like just finding what works for you and what you want to gain from. And I think that has come from children, that's come from being an athlete, that's come from being a gym owner, like just chipping away at all those little areas and finding the way that I can be the best kind of like dad, father, athlete that I can be.
So now just to like wrap this up, I have like quicker questions that I like to go through at the very end
Oh,
of this
rapid
thing,
fire.
like
Pew,
a
pew, 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 pew.
rapid fire thing. Yeah. Um, and we've actually kind of talked about a lot of the various like things. Like I asked you about your philosophy of how you're like raising your kids, and how you knew about wanting kids and balancing your work and family, all that stuff we already talked about. But I'm curious, um, how did you name your kids? How'd you come up with their names?
Um, so all of them are just kind of random. Like there's no real, like we like different names. So I have Boston is my oldest. Then we have Lawson. Then you have Thaxton, and then our daughter is the only one that kind of. So my mom's name is Roseanne, and my mother-in-law's name is Linda. So then Rosalind is her name. So it's a combination of like both of their names. So that's the only one that like actually has significance like behind it of like what it actually means. The other one is just my wife's a school teacher, so then every name that she would hear or you would go over and be like, yeah, no, I don't let like
Yeah, yeah.
resort to something of like in the past of like that kid was terrible, or she would say a name and I'm like, oh, I couldn't stand that kid in high school. So then when you're actually starting to pick names, it's hard, but we like them to be different and not very common names. And I don't believe any of them really are. Like Thaxton, I think is like 1 in 1.8 million was like the amount it's been used. And I was like,
Nice.
perfect. Like he's not going to be in a class with like, so my wife's name's Lauren. And there was a girl in her high school class with the exact same name, first and last.
No way.
Yeah. And so then it was like, no, like you can't have a name like that.
Yeah,
So
that's
they
fair.
all have their own different names that
Yeah.
don't really mean anything. They just are different names that we liked.
Yeah, my wife's name is Katie, and she goes by Katie, I think, because as a kid there were like three Catherines in her, like one of them, like the teacher was just like, you're Kathy, you're Kate, you're Katie, basically. And from
Yeah.
that point on, like, oh, the 6-year-old now, the rest of their effing lives, they're just gonna be known by this offhanded nickname that they were given. And an
Yeah.
even more extreme example of that, by the way, is that both my parents, they were both born in Iran. Both my parents, their actual birth names are not the names that I know them as, because one, my mom, they named my mom, and then her dad went off to like the central office to like register the birth and forgot the name that they came up with, so he named her something else. So like her entire family calls her a different name than anyone else in our lives, because they call her
No
the
way.
name they wanted to name her, and all of us call her the name that that her dad
That's
ended up using.
hysterical.
And
Oh
then
man.
my dad, when he went to school, there was like two other boys that had the same name he did, and the teacher changed his name. The teacher was like, this isn't your name anymore, now your name is this. And
No,
now everyone
it'd be
goes
like me
along with
going
that.
in and be like, hey, my name's Travis. No, you're Franklin. You're Franklin.
That's
Okay. Like
exactly
you're
what it's
Franklin.
like. That's exactly what it's like. It's like,
Oh
you don't look
man.
like a Travis to me, you look like a
Yeah.
Franklin. So yeah,
Oh,
the
that's
name
funny.
thing, that makes sense. That makes total sense. Right now, at this moment, what do you see as your role as a dad?
Ooh, it's kind of like a deep question.
Ooh, tough one. A tough quick shot there.
Yeah. Um, right now as a dad, I'd probably say the dad that's trying to be the most present, show them as much as I possibly can, and just kind of enjoy all the little moments.
I love it. The
I mean,
being
the time from when my oldest, like he's in kindergarten now, and there's definitely times that I wish I would have spent more at certain point in time with him, knowing that it would like already fast forward this much, because it seems like just yesterday he was born and now he's already in kindergarten. And then it's like I can only imagine what it's going to keep doing, because then everybody's like you blink and then they're in high school, and then it's like you don't want to miss those things. And I think everybody always tries to rush and get to the next day and get to like, oh, let's go to this vacation in 3 weeks. Like just trying to be more present, I think is like a important lesson I think everybody can learn from and start to work on is like get off your phone, put your phone down, and like have conversations with people that are interacting. And when you go out to eat and you see four people sitting there and they're all on their phones, I'm like, none of you guys are actually having a conversation. I'm like, you guys are
Mhm.
almost just texting each other. And I think the world is just becoming too like almost like focused on just those areas. And I think for me as a dad, it's being able to step back from that and almost realize like that stuff's just not important. And like if you were to die today, like you want those moments that you cherished with your kids to be fun moments and memories that you created, not just like, oh, we sat in a corner and played on our phones or the tablet or whatever. It's like, no, let's get outside, create memories, go do different things. And I think that's what I'm trying to do.
I love it. I mean, I'll just leave it at that. I'm not even gonna ask any more questions. That was fantastic. I
Thanks,
I
thanks.
I, I love the being present in today's day and age is a superpower in and of itself. Whether you're an adult or a child, it doesn't matter. There's just so many different things that can be distracting and are just designed to sort of like grab onto your brain and not let go. And being able to be present in any way is really, really impressive. And trying to pass that along to your kids is equally
Yeah.
impressive. So
And I mean, I think it's hard and it's challenging. And I mean, because everything is at your fingertips, right? Like if I want something from Amazon, like I click a button and it's there like the next day. Like everything is just now, 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 now. And I think you just kind of forget like the time of like when we didn't have phones and like you all you did was communicate with people and he sent things through AOL and everything else like that. Just like it was a different time. And I think it's just being able to enjoy all those moments now with them. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. And there's definitely times where I'll sit there and I'll be like, what am I actually looking at? Right. Or like, what am I actually doing? Like, I'm not looking at anything. Right. It's just like, it's got my attention. And then it's almost just like a habit of like, let me scroll. Where in reality, like, I could be up doing something way more productive and then I would be distracted sitting on a couch, not really looking at anything or making any impact anywhere.
yeah, I love it.
Of
Trav, thanks so much, man.
course, man.
I
Glad to hop
appreciate.
on and talk something not besides fitness, man. That was good.
Yeah, that's like I'm very, very tired of talking about fitness. Like I'm
Yeah.
very tired of the just the various things that come along with that, and having been doing that for so long, and then now having a kid and sort of getting a lot more perspective on how I spend my time and what I want to learn about and do. And yeah, I appreciate you helping me out here. And also I think a lot of people are going to enjoy what it is you had to say here.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. I think it's definitely kind of a different perspective of what we usually talk about in fitness and how's training and what's this like, what's the plan coming up, so on and so forth. So it's kind of nice to just step back. And it's even like when I get home at night, like I don't want to talk fitness. Like let's talk other things than just fitness.
Yeah, it's like I'm more than just my abs.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I'm more than my VMOs. I'm more than my VMOs. Of
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, dude. I appreciate it.
course. Thanks for having me on.